With it being the beginning of a new month and officially passing the halfway point for the year, I wanted to take a deeper dive into the sales figures for one of my favorite brands, and that is Subaru. Up and down the lineup, they have a great selection of affordable crossovers that also give you standard all-wheel drive. Considering we're in a market where the average transaction price for a brand new vehicle is $50,000, you have three crossovers that don't even get to 50 grand on the higher end, and that is the Crosstrek, the Forester, and the Outback. You still have the Ascent, which people forget about, and for those of you looking for vehicles that are efficient, you have two hybrids and three EVs. You have the Crosstrek and Forester hybrid, and then you have the Solterra, Trailseeker, and Uncharted. Then for those of you looking for some fun on your weekday commutes, we have the Subaru WRX. And we've talked about the WRX's success this year, and in fact, for July, numbers were still up over 214% compared to where we were last year for July of 2025. And overall, year to date, sales numbers are up 24%. Not bad for a car that has a 6-speed manual that people apparently don't like the design of. Also, the fact that it isn't the most efficient, especially compared to, say, a Honda Civic Si or even an Elantra N. It's actually one of the more gas-guzzling cars in this market. So to see those numbers increase substantially, that's pretty good here. But what about the rest of the lineup? Because looking at where gas prices are right now heading into August, and then of course the average transaction price for a brand new vehicle, if there's one manufacturer that could be seen as niche, not as mainstream as Toyota and Honda, that would benefit from this particular market and has a lineup ready to succeed in these conditions, it would be Subaru. And yet when you look up and down the board, most of the vehicles in the lineup aren't doing well compared to where we were in 2025. Some of that is due to the fact that with the tariffs, Subaru had to increase pricing, and people have decided not to purchase or take a look at different brands in this market. So let's begin at the top of this graph and work our way down. So you have the Ascent and BRZ, basically two vehicles in the lineup that people kind of forget about. The BRZ is only selling about 200 units a month, and sales figures are down 5.4%. The Subaru Ascent needs to be updated significantly to be anywhere close to being competitive in this market, yet somehow managed to sell 38% higher in July of 2026 compared to July of 2025. So people must be loving the Subaru Ascent right now, or prices are pretty good on that vehicle. But then we get to the meat of the lineup. This is the Crosstrek, the Forester, the Outback. We can kind of forget about the Impreza and Legacy, even though right now, even halfway into 2026, small cars and sedans are doing really well. In fact, they're having their best year of sales in a long time, and buyers are hyper-focused on one, affordability, and two, efficiency. And the Impreza should be falling under that category, and well, the Legacy is no longer being made, so you only have one option there, and the Impreza, its sales figures are down 43% year over year. But I'm more focused on the Crosstrek, Forester, and Outback. These are three crossovers that annually compete for the best-selling model in the lineup, and they're all going in their own separate directions here. Starting off with the Crosstrek, sales are down 4.2% year over year. For the month of July, was down 10.5%. That should not be possible, considering the fact the Subaru Crosstrek does come in below $30,000, and we now have a hybrid variant which comes in at around 35 grand. Considering that people are looking for efficiency and affordability, the Crosstrek checks off both of those boxes, and you also have 8.7 inches of ground clearance for better urine capability and versatility, and yet the Crosstrek is not converting when it comes to sales. People are looking elsewhere. Now, with this current generation Crosstrek, it has been around for quite some time and really isn't that much different than the first generation. So buyers could be getting fatigued out of the Crosstrek. There might need to be a significant update sometime down the road. Then you have the Forester, which, if we eliminate the WRX from the equation, it is having the best year out of all vehicles in the lineup. Coming in at over 14.5% year over year, that growth is substantial. And some of that could be because the Forester offers a hybrid. But the Forester is defying the odds, because if you take a look at what people are saying about the Forester and what they've been saying about this vehicle for years now, They want a better powertrain. They want a Turbo 4. They also don't like the infotainment system, and yet this Forester, with the older infotainment system, some of the models don't even have a full digital gauge cluster, is out here selling 33.5% higher than where it was in July of 2025. This vehicle is on fire. It's one of the better selling crossovers in its class, and some of that could be due to the fact that Toyota can't meet demand for the RAV4. Buyers might be looking at the Forester, and when it comes to their pricing, the Forester is very competitive and does offer a lot of practicality, so buyers must be really loving what the Forester is providing right now for the 2026 model. However, it all the excitement ends with the Outback. And this vehicle, aside from June, because June was actually pretty strong for the Outback surprisingly, this vehicle month over month has just been down all the time. And for the year itself, it's down 13%. And for the month of July, compared to 2025, was down 7%. And I think there's a few reasons as to why. It's not just the design. Everyone wants to say, oh, the Outback looks ugly, it's horrible, they should have never moved away from the lifted station wagon look, and I completely agree with that, but I don't think that is the main reason why people are moving away from the Outback. The sales decrease could actually just be buyers looking at the Forester, but I do think it's because the Outback no longer offers a base trim. There's no base model. So it comes in at $35,000, whereas with a Forester, you're coming in at around 30 grand. You're saving $5,000 there. And at one time, with the base trim, that was almost identical in pricing to that Forester. Buyers don't need all the tech and gizmos that are going to be found out of the premium. Some buyers might just want cloth seats, and you don't get that anymore out of the Outback. So I think Subaru got a bit too bougie with the Outback. They wanted to go a bit more upscale with it. Even on the higher end, you're paying around $48,000. I just think that Subaru kind of missed the mark here with this generation. Having a hybrid powertrain would also go a long way. So we're missing out on a lot of components here. The pricing is wrong. There's no hybrid. And I think without a base trim, this vehicle just isn't appealing anymore. People are going to be spending 35 grand on the lower end, $40,000 for a well-equipped premium. It's just not what buyers are looking for right now. So hopefully Subaru gets back on track. They don't necessarily need to make a change in terms of the exterior appearance, but definitely offer a base trim once again like it did last generation. Then, interestingly enough, we have the EVs. We have the Solterra, the Trailseeker, and the Uncharted. The Trailseeker is doing really well here. 1,000 units sold, over 3,500 units for the year. And it's only been on sale for a couple of months now. So it's selling about 1,000 units a month, which is actually pretty good in this class. But what's comical, though, is you take a look at the three EVs, and the WRX is almost outselling all three of them, which I think is really interesting here. Now, with the Uncharted, this is supposed to be a vehicle that's a bit more appealing than the Solterra. Yet, I think this is where it all goes wrong for the vehicle. And I don't want to jump on Subaru's back here, but when you take a look at the Uncharted or even the Toyota CHR, how can you justify the pricing at $35,000 when you only get a range of 288 miles? A Subaru Crosstrek hybrid can get around 600 miles on a full tank. That's twice what you get here out of the EV lineup. I think Subaru's going to have to deal with that too, and I think also part of all of this, why the sales numbers are down, is because Subaru focused primarily on EVs and not doing enough with their hybrid lineup. They're not doing enough with their main sellers, and I think because of that, we're seeing buyers look elsewhere or just hold out for a bit, wait for Subaru to come out with good products that people actually want. The Trailseeker, though, with it being a station wagon, that's going to draw in people who are ready to make that leap into a full electrification and also want a vehicle that reminds them of the Outback. It's too bad that we couldn't get that out of an Outback, that design, that station wagon-like appearance. Throw on the plastic cladding, throw on some ground clearance. I think people want to see that, and station wagons, at least on the higher end, are becoming a bit more popular. People want that out of a daily driver. So they have something going here with the Trailseeker, but if they can take that same type of DNA, that same styling, and throw it onto the Outback, maybe we see a drastic turnaround for that vehicle. And then lastly, here we have the WRX. The WRX is up 214.5% when you're comparing it to July of 2025 and up 24% year over year. It's one of the better selling sports cars in this market, a highlight, a standout in this lineup, and Subaru's going to be doubling down on this heading into 2027 and 2028. There was reports that they have a new department focusing on performance, so hopefully it gets even better for the WRX lineup moving forward. And then at the bottom of this chart is going to be your year-to-date numbers overall for the brand, which is down 3.7%. Where my concern is the fact that right now, taking a look at the automotive industry, people are looking for affordable vehicles, how Toyota and Honda are succeeding out of their sedan and hybrid lineups. Subaru should be doing the same. Unfortunately, Subaru doesn't break down what the sales figures are for the hybrids over the full gas-powered models. I would love to see what percentage breakdown that is for the Forester and Crosstrek, but it seems like at least for the Forester, regardless of powertrain, people love what that crossover is offering. But most competitors are actually seeing a benefit to people purchasing affordable and efficient vehicles, and well, Subaru is not one of the lucky ones. Unfortunately, they're also falling into the same category as what Mazda has experienced over the past few months here. But I think if you take a look at the numbers just a bit more intently, the bigger gap is the fact we don't have the Legacy anymore in the lineup, and the Legacy was selling around 13,000 units a month there. We've lost over 11,000 units. So that one vehicle alone would make up for that gap that we see compared to last year for the overall sales to date. And then lastly, the Impreza. The Impreza is down big. That's an 8,000 unit drop there compared to 2025. Those two vehicles alone are kind of hurting the brand in terms of the overall numbers. And then just small marginal losses for the rest of the lineup. But I'm really focused on that Outback though. The Outback needs to have a drastic turnaround because the vehicle that comes in at $35,000 and ends at around 50 grand, that's a crossover that always does well in the US. It's one of the better selling mid-size crossovers that are two rows in the US, and it's just not converting this year. When you take a look at the overall sales numbers, the Forester is up 20,000 units compared to the Crosstrek and almost 50,000 units compared to the Outback. That never happened. That never happened before in previous years. The Forester and Outback were always neck and neck, and then the Crosstrek really reached the height of its popularity last year and the year before, and those three vehicles would be the big three for the Subaru lineup, and it isn't that anymore. The Forester has become the high volume seller. So I'm really curious to see what happens for the rest of the year, because if these numbers hold, it's not going to be a great year for Subaru, and it's kind of sad because they have such a great lineup and competitive vehicles in this class, but buyers are either holding out or, I think, because Subaru buyers are very loyal to the brand, they've taken a look at what they've done to the lineup, what they did to the Outback, what they're doing with the EV products, and they're like, what brand is this? Subaru, in some ways, at least for their main sellers, have kind of lost their identity. So if they can go back to the basics and focus on what's got them here, what's made them popular, especially up here in the Northeast and colder regions of the US, you're going to see Subaru succeed once again. But I'm very concerned looking at these numbers because it's been month-over-month drops for the last few months, and that just shouldn't be possible right now, looking at where gas prices are and looking at what buyers really are focusing on and buying in 2026. These vehicles should be performing very strongly, and they're just not.